and I'll probably just upload it later. Okay. All right. So what we were learning yesterday, and let me just bring back our screen. We were learning yesterday the Aruch HaShulchan in Siman Kuf Nun Daled in Choshen Mishpat, where he brings this machlokus that is cited by the by what we saw in the Shulchan Aruch, that am I allowed to prevent my neighbor from increasing the density of his home? I don't live in the same home as him, but we live in the same courtyard. So we share common resources like the outhouse. So can I stop him on that basis and on the basis of added foot traffic in the courtyard that we share? So the first opinion was that I can prevent him because these are added inconveniences that I never bargained for. And the only time that I cannot stop him from increasing the density of his home is if it's his own family, meaning that these are his direct dependents. They live with him and they're mamish his family. But if he's financially benefiting from the added density because these other people that he's brought in are helping to cover the rent or are paying him and so forth, so then I can take him to a beis din and say, you can't do this. I don't want this. That's the first opinion. It's the opinion of the Rambam. Then we have another opinion from other Rishonim who say that as long as a person does not increase the footprint of his house by doing an expansion project, construction to add more rooms to his house, he can do whatever he wants. It's his own house. And even if there's going to be added density and added inconvenience in getting to the outhouse and other shared resources, there's nothing I can do about it. So it would seem that because there's a machlokas here and the Shulchan Aruch provides both opinions, then the other homeowner is at the disadvantage because the guy can say, well, you paskin like the Rambam, but I paskin like all of those other Rishonim. Okay? So then he says as follows. Aval shnayim sheish lahem b'shutfus bayis echad. But the aforementioned was when they are living in two separate houses. But what if they're sharing the same house or the same apartment? They're roommates or they're housemates. So ein ha'echad yochol laharshos la'acherem li'ishtamesh bechelko afal gav shebechatzer ein yochol la'akev l'deyazu. Then even according to the second opinion, that that says that every person can do what they want, that's only if they're living in separate houses. But if they're living in the same apartment, I do have a right as the roommate or as the apartment mate to tell the person, I don't want more people in the apartment. He says, because when it comes to the same house, it's much more intimate, right? That's much more close living space. It's not like your neighbors, it's your mamish living in the same house. And
I mean, it's more impactful, isn't it? I mean, it's just
much more, it's much more impactful. And like we saw in the Shulchan Aruch, that even if I don't currently live in the apartment, I'm on spring break or I'm away temporarily for the semester, or I'm on a business trip or whatever it is, I still can tell this person who's my roommate who's sharing the house with me that I don't want you to bring more people in. He's going to say to me, what difference does it make to you? You're not even there. So the response is, he says, because I'm worried that the house is going to become a total disaster when you bring in more people into the house. I just don't want to worry about things breaking, about things getting dirty, about wear and tear on the house and things like that. But now all of the aforementioned, as if my roommate wants to bring additional bodies into the apartment or the house. But let's say he says, I'm moving out and I'm allowing someone else to come in my stead. So he says, and in that situation, Ein hashutav hasheni yachol la'akev. So I don't have a right to stop him. If he says he's moving out and he already signed the lease for the year and he wants to sublet it to a friend so he can leave, let's say he's getting married and he's on the hook for the rent for the rest of the year. And he says, but I have found a roommate for you. And so so I don't have a right to say to him, no, I don't want that guy. And you have to continue paying the rent. I don't have that right. ואפילו כשהשותף השני דור שם, אין ביכולתו לומר, עמך אני יכול לדור ולא עם זה. And he says explicitly, he says, I don't have a right to say, with you I can tolerate, but I can't tolerate that other guy. He's a shmendrik, he's a nudnik, he drives me crazy, does all crazy kinds of things that you never used to do. Too bad. שהושפס במקומך כמו בסוחר בסימן שין יוד זין, דהלו השותף יכול למכור חלקו. He says, because, and this is the same thing true by labor law as well, that if I contract to work for you, but I have to back out, I can always find someone to take my place. And the reason is because a partner has a right to sort of sublease his portion of the apartment to somebody else. V'gam yachol lachufo lachlok bedina degud o igud. And also, the new guy can also compel a buyout. The new roommate, just like the old roommate, can always compel a buyout. So too can the new roommate. So basically, there's a principle of let's see, not to buy the other guy out, but to be able to create a separation. And since everyone has a right to create a separation on their property by compelling the other neighbor to put up a wall, he also has the right to give up his portion. That's essentially what the Aruch HaShulchan is saying. And as far as then he undertakes this last issue, which is B'mechad mibale hachatzer ritzanu lasos ezo umnos b'chatzer m'chaver yochol limchos yisbar b'simin kufman vav b'siyata d'shmaya. Now, if one of the neighbors wishes to, now we're going back to the courtyard case, multiple houses in a courtyard. If one of the neighbors wishes to engage in a particular business in that courtyard, what rights do the other neighbors have? That'll be explained later on. And then we go on. And he says, "Va'afilu ledas hacholkim al harambam, the bechatzer hashutfim yachol kol echad lahoshev b'veiso diurim kamoshe yirtze." He says, even according to those who disagree with the Rambam and are more liberal to allow a homeowner to bring in as many tenants as he would like, aval liftoach petach chadash mibeito lechatzer yachol hasheni la'akev alav. But the one thing that I, as a fellow homeowner in that courtyard, can prevent my neighbor from doing is opening up a new doorway into the courtyard. In other words, to increase the amount of outlet into the courtyard, I do have a right to prevent. Shekol echad mibnei hachatzer ein lo reshus l'shanos klal b'hachatzer, ela kamo shebinao o kinao or shabanu o kanu o yarshu, yesh lahem linhag bo. He says, because no one who's sharing that courtyard has a right to change the functionality of that courtyard or the configuration of the courtyard as far as use. Afilu bana aliyah al gav beso, o bana eitzel beso od binyan, kishiyesh lo karka bechatzer hashayach lo levado. He says, and this is true, even if I want to make a construction project on my house. Let's say I own more land than just my home. okay, and I want to expand onto a larger footprint in my house, that I have a right to do. Ubana ha'aliyah, or I want to put on a second floor on my house, which I have a right to do. Ubana ha'aliyah o habinyan lo lidirus, zeh ein lo rishus. He says, I don't have a right to take in more tenants to fill that added space, like we mentioned yesterday from the Shulchan Aruch. Af lahal chokim lahosif dirim chadashim b'vinyanim chadashim ela shebanan letzorach otzros. He says, if, however, I want to make an addition to my home so that I can, let's say, use it for storage, that I have a right to do. But even in that situation, lo yaseh lahem pesach lesoch hachatzer, lefi shamar ba'aleim es haderech. But I still can't, if I add on another room to my house, I can't put an outside door that will enter into the courtyard, creating additional potential foot traffic. He says, because that's like adding additional neighbors, additional people who are going to be using the courtyard. Because the more doors that open up into the courtyard, it's understood that there is going to be more foot traffic. So therefore, I have to maintain the one door that goes from my house to the courtyard. And what I'll do is I'll simply add doors that connect indoors from the addition to my original house. He says, and furthermore, even if I already had 2 stories, I can't add a new door on the second floor that goes directly out to the courtyard. But I certainly do have a right to add on to my house. I have to get my neighbor's permission, and I can build up to the property line, right? Provided that I'm not adding new tenants as a result. ואין צורך לומר שאם רצה לחלוק ביתו לשניים ואינו מוסיף בניין חדש, ואינו יכול לעכב עליו כשאינו פותח פסח חדש לחצר להרבות דירות שם מספר בסעיף א'. And as far as even if I want to, let's say, subdivide my house, I have a big house, and I want to divide it in 2. My kids are moving into the house, and I want them to have their own wing of the house for their own privacy. I'm allowed to do that, but I cannot build a second door that will go out to the shared courtyard. Now, how would that apply in modern times, where our configuration is that the doors open to the street and not to a shared courtyard? So probably it would be okay. It wouldn't be a problem. I do have the right, according to the second opinion, not like the Rambam, to add as many tenants as I want to my house, and then as long as it opens to the street and not to a shared space, then I have every right to do so. What about the argument that my neighbor may lodge that you're increasing traffic on the street? I find that not a very compelling argument, because there's so much traffic on the street that is not from the people who live in the homes that are on that street. So it's probably not going to be a good argument.
It's interesting, Rabbi. I guess the modern day application maybe is turning single family homes into rooming houses.
Yes, correct.
There are, I think I saw an article on one of the websites in Toronto either yesterday or a few days ago, dealing with this very issue. So it certainly does exist more in downtown Toronto.
Yeah.
And there, you have neighbors who used to live next to a single family. All of a sudden they have, 5 or 6 different people living in one house.
Correct.
It changes the character of the neighborhood as well.
It does. As a matter of fact, my son was telling me, my son does real estate in LA, and he was telling me, for years, LA had restrictions on increasing the density in neighborhoods. And then the city council realized that we can't, the housing is too expensive and we can't possibly accommodate all the people who want to live here at an affordable price. So they changed the law really upside down. And they basically now are allowing people to convert their garages and to convert this thing and that thing because they recognize that there's a housing crisis. And I think the same thing is happening in Toronto as well, where originally there may have been quality of life concerns to prevent people from increasing the density of their homes. But now the realities have set in of a shortage of housing. So the municipality has reversed its decision. I would imagine the same thing is true here. What were you going to say, Ron? NIMBY. Multiple tenants. Yeah, right. Yeah, people must have their parties. Yeah.
So Rabbi, just to let you know, I don't think any of us on the Zoom call can hear the question. So I don't know how we can, maybe you could repeat it or something like that. I don't, is that happening with everyone else on the call?
All right, thank you for pointing that out. I'll endeavor to try and make everyone heard. What Ron was basically saying is that this is a prevailing issue, that people don't want density to be increased in their neighbor's property because of noise, because of traffic and things like that. What was it? What was the last point? Yeah. Okay, excellent question. So Ron is asking, when we have a machlokas like the one that we saw here, where the Rambam or gives more power to a neighbor to restrict his neighbor, versus let's say the Ran and the Ramban, which is the second opinion, where they're more laissez-faire about it, and they do give everyone autonomous rights to add as many tenants as they want with certain restrictions. So what is the Beis Din going to do? How's it like, you have a dispute. Reuven wants to add tenants. Shimon wants to stop him. Shimon says you got to paskin like the Rambam, and Reuven says, well, I paskin like the second opinion in the Shulchan Aruch. That's within Reuven's purview to paskin like the second opinion. And that's something that we see a number of times, that when it comes to financial law, if there are two legitimate opinions, and I can find an opinion that is to my financial advantage, I do have a halachic right to side with that opinion, as long as it's a viable, as generally subscribed to opinion where it's not like completely rejected by the poskim. Now, there are certain times when a person is clearly an opinion is clearly in the minority, and there are precedents for not utilizing that opinion. So that you can't rely on. And the Beis Din would know how to apply that. But if there's clearly two opinions, like we're seeing here in the Aruch HaShulchan, then each person can dig in his heels and say, I'm going to go like the other one, the other opinion. And since it's my house, back off, dude, right? Essentially, you can't. Fine, you paskin like the Rambam, but I'm paskening like other poskim, so you have no jurisdiction. It's basically and then it boils down to a person can do whatever he wants. Okay, so we continue. We continue. Velo ode. Ela afilo haya pesach o chalon shel echad mehashutzim behachatzer katan eno yachol laharchivo. He says, I'll take it one step further, says the Aruch HaShulchan, where he talks about a window or a door that already exists. Not only can you not add a window or a door into the chutzner, but you're not even allowed to expand the door or a window that already exists. Shaharei shutva omer lo bepetach katan ani yachol lihisater mimcha. This actually goes back to our earlier halacha about hezek re'iyah. A neighbor can say, when you had a small window, I felt a little bit more protected as far as what, voyeurism. But now that you've got this huge window or this huge door, it makes me feel much more uncomfortable. And he goes on, and so we're not, it goes actually beyond the scope of our discussion. So let me just go back to, so I think what we'll do is we'll hold it here, and we'll continue Amir Hashem. I think Monday is a statutory holiday, so there won't be any class on it's Thanksgiving. Do I have that right? Yeah, I'm still getting used to Canadian Thanksgiving. Yeah. Do they sell turkeys? People. Okay. All right. So Mir Hashem will continue on Tuesday at 6:10, and let me wish everyone a good Shabbos. There's no